When it comes to the world of Naruto, prophecies are a really tricky subject because they're often up for interpretation, and we've seen quite a few characters have them. However, while characters are familiar with Jiraiya and Naruto having prophecies, what if I told you there's a nugget of lore out there about Sarada and Sakura that you likely aren't familiar with that can be viewed as a prophecy? Much like the great Toad Elder's visions were shown in the form of dreams. Well, in today's edition of After Naruto Shippuden, we're going to be looking at the prophecy of Sakura's death and Sarada's connection to it, and the foundation for Sarada's Mangekyo Sharingan awakening, which after the last Boruto manga chapter, it really should have fans holding their breath for this moment that we're about to go over. For those of you guys who are new, After Naruto Shippuden is a series on the channel where we take a look at the lore that takes place between Naruto chapter 699 and chapter 700, essentially the stories that aren't fully adapted into Naruto Shippuden's anime after the war and before Naruto chapter 700, where Boruto paints the faces of all the Hokages. In today's video, we're going to cover the moment where Sakura's future death is laid out in full in a vision for us, and how Sarada's emotions right after it are consistent with the Mangekyo Sharingan awakening, and why this should make Masashi Kishimoto's official artwork for Sarada's Mangekyo Sharingan make a lot of you guys grab the tissues once you see the context behind it. Starting with the last one, 6 years ago when Boruto's manga first came out, transitioning from the Boruto movie and entering into its manga run in 2016, Masashi Kishimoto drew concept art for Team 7. We had Mitsuki with his Sage transformation, we had Boruto with the Byakugan, and we had Sarada with a sun patterned Mangekyo Sharingan. Since then, Mitsuki's Sage transformation has been shown to us. Boruto's gained the Byakugan in one eye, but Boruto's Chakra Cloak and Sarada's Mangekyo Sharingan still haven't been shown to us, which brings us to the visions of Sakura's death and Sarada's Mangekyo Sharingan awakening. So the information came to us in 2017, a full year after Masashi Kishimoto's concept art was released, but this time it came from Ukyo Kodachi, the former writer for Boruto's manga and the man who helped oversee the writing for Boruto's anime early on. In 2017, Kodachi released a Boruto light novel for the Hidden Mist field trip arc, which is the full story of events that we didn't see in the anime version of that story, and in that novel we have the vision for Sakura's death and the foundation for Sarada's Mangekyo Sharingan awakening. In the scene I'm going to share with you guys, Sarada's just had a full vision of the future where her mother Sakura dies in her arms protecting Sarada from the harm of an attacker, and as Sarada begins to feel the life spilling out of her mother's body as she takes her last breath, Sarada's hands begin to tremble, and some of the sensations that the narrator begins to describe are consistent with the other light novels like the Itachi Book of Midnight novel and the Naruto Jinraiden novel, where Itachi and Sasuke respectively felt the Mangekyo Sharingan stirring up inside their eyes, except in this vision, due to Sarada not actually knowing anything about the Mangekyo, she doesn't fully understand what's occurring inside her body, but we as the audience actually know, because Kodachi as a writer was using dramatic irony, which is where readers know something that the characters in universe don't. So as we go through the scene, I want you guys to keep in mind those moments where Sarada asked Sasuke in the car actuation arc about how to awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan and what it feels like, and I want you also to think about that distant future where Boruto versus Kawaki takes place and it looks like nobody survived that attack. So with the scene in the context finally being added, it's here I'm going to begin reading selected passages from the novel. Then I'm going to come back to you guys with my thoughts, and it's here, I quote, "Little by little the woman's body temperature seemed to be dissipating. Gazing intently at the woman in a daze, the girl was unable to utter even a single word about the situation. Even though the woman was just alive a short while ago, she was turning into a cold body. The name of the life that had been extinguished was Sakura. It's her mother. She wanted it to be alive. The grief was too much to process, but no tears came out. Just a step away from Sarada was a shuriken that had been protruding from the ground. Based off of her experience in training as a shinobi, she moved the body. While carrying the corpse of her mother in her arms, Sarada leapt further back and distanced herself from her surroundings. Sarada then shifted her line of sight back to the scenery. War. Sarada and Sakura had come to the battlefield in order to protect the village's Konoha shinobi, but Sakura had protected Sarada. She's dead. While in Sarada's arms, she had told her to live on. This was a common occurrence though. On the battlefield, someone was bound to be killed by someone else, and then someone was bound to die in somebody else's place, trying to protect them. This had become quite a mundane scene, except this time she had simply become the person who was impacted by it. Her mother had simply become one of the deceased. That's all there was to it. She had understood that as a fact. However, she couldn't accept it. She was screaming. Was it out of anger, sorrow, or was it because of something else? Sarada didn't know anymore. Her mother was already silent now. Sarada laid her down. She was screaming as she went to attack the enemy. In quote. Now, what I love about these scenes and questions that we see Sarada beginning to struggle with that cycle of hatred immediately after the death of her mother. We don't know what happened to cause the village to be attacked, only that the village had been attacked and that Sarada's Uchiha blood was beginning to overtake those Sakura genetics. We see Sarada beginning to come to grips with the fact that her mother's dead. Later on in the scene when she's engaging in combat with the person who killed her mother, and once the vision is over, due to how overwhelmingly realistic it is, we see Sarada distraught over what she's seen to the point where she goes over to the Hokage Tower to speak to Naruto directly, hoping to gain some more understanding into what she just saw. And as she begins to start asking the questions on her heart about what makes someone kill another person, how they can be expected to kill others as a shinobi, Sarada loses her nerve when she begins to speak to Naruto. Now, I love this scene because we see more of the human side to her character. We see her seeking out the Hokage both for comfort as well as knowledge, almost like she views Naruto as a mentor, and we see the effects on it and what it has on Sarada and how Naruto is a bit of a comforting presence to her. What I also love about this is that we see another aspect of the series. So in part 1 of Naruto, we were teased by Kakashi saying that the Sharingan can see into the future to see Zabuza's death, but we know that this wasn't exactly the case like Kakashi made it seem. However, what we do know is that there have been characters who get visions while they aren't 100% accurate and they don't see everything that's going to happen in the future. Like say Momoshiki, the events when they do happen, they aren't too far off. What's really fun to look at right here is the fact that a year after we see Masashi Kishimoto draw the concept art for Sarada's Mangekyou Sharingan, a year later we get this scene like this and we see how much of a sensitive child Sarada is and how she begins to question the aspects of shinobi life, as well as question the very morality of the Hokage position itself, which by this point in the timeline, she had already made that her future goal. Currently in the manga, we have Code coming to Konoha, claiming he wants to destroy it, and the potential for death is pretty huge here without going into spoilers. Could there be a situation like this, like the Toad Elder's prophecy, where he saw things but not exactly seeing the whole picture itself, which is why the resolution of Naruto and Nagato's situation took him by surprise? Absolutely. The same thing with Momoshiki, seeing Boruto's gonna lose everything, but not how the actual moment itself takes place, only certain situations around it. That's also possible. This has potential. Swap out the people that Sarada was fighting in this vision with, say, Ten-Tailed soldiers, or later on Kawaki blowing up the village. If he didn't act alone and there are other cyborgs, it's not the craziest thing. And I find it very poetic in this passage right here that we see some payoff. Sarada awakened her Sharingan as a toddler when she got sick at home, when she was waiting to see her father, and she awakened it consciously as a 11-year-old child when she went to visit her father during the events of Naruto Gaiden. And now in this passage right here, we potentially see the vision for what appears to be how Sarada gains the Mangekyo Sharingan from her mother's passing. Both parents are responsible for our eyes, which is very poetic when you look at it. However, this is where I turn it over to you guys. What are you guys' thoughts about the vision that Sarada had? Do you guys view this as being a loose interpretation of what's going to happen in the future? And if Sakura does die in a manner like this for someone like Sarada, what would this do for Sarada's character for you as well as Sakura's character? Or are you like me and do you view this as more so just Sarada having a dream and her overactive imagination is just running wild with the dark possible scenario, and this might be a loose interpretation of things to come? Let me know down in the comment section below. And if you want to learn more about what happens after Naruto Shippuden, make sure to check out the After Naruto Shippuden playlist.